Hi everyone, welcome back to CodeCraft Academy. If you are new here, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and click on the bell icon to get notifications on technical tips and tutorials. In today's video, we are starting a series on React state management tools. In the first part, we will cover the basics of state management and dive into the React's built-in hooks, useState and useReducer. Let's dive into the action. What is state management? In React, state refers to the data that controls the behavior and rendering of components. Managing this state efficiently is crucial for building complex and interactive applications. Why is state management important? As your application grows, managing state becomes challenging. Without proper state management, you can end up with messy code, bugs, and performance issues. React provides two hooks for state management. They are useState and useReducer. useState is a React hook that lets you add a state variable to your component. Here is the syntax for useState. useState takes one parameter, that is initial state, the value you want the state to be initially, and useState returns two values. One is the current state. During the first render, it will match the initial state you have passed. And the second value is the set function that lets you update the state to different value and trigger re-render. useReducer is a React hook that lets you add a reducer to your component to manage its state. Here is the syntax for useReducer. useReducer takes two parameters. One is reducer, the reducer function that specifies how the state gets updated. And the second parameter is initial arg, the value from which the initial state is calculated. And useReducer returns two values. One is the current state. During the first render, it is set to the initial arg. And the second value returned by the useReducer is dispatch function. The dispatch function that lets you update the state to a different value and trigger a re-render. Let's see what is the dispatch function. Dispatch function is written by the useReducer that lets you update the state to a different value and trigger a re-render. Dispatch function takes one argument, there is an action, the action performed by the user. And dispatch function returns no values. It don't have any return value. It only takes parameters. So this is all about state management tools provided by the React. There is useState and then useReducer. Now let's into the action and see the examples for both useState and useReducer. Let's see the example for managing state using useState hook. Okay, let me add. In this example, we are simply designing a counter. Clicking on a button should increment the counter and display on web page. Okay, let me add. So I will be adding one paragraph and then one button here. Take one state variable. can pass the initial variables 0. Okay, I will be displaying count here. So on click, we are triggering an event on click. So we should increment the count, right? So let's set the count. That's it. We are done with the counter component. Let's see in the web page how it looks. Let me start the application. The React application starts on 3000 port by default in localhost. Okay, it started. Let me drag that into view. Okay, if you see here, let me zoom in. Yep. So we are when we click on this click me, the count should get incremented. Initially it's 0. Let's see. Yeah. See, it keep on changing. If you see here. So here we are managing the state using the useState hook. Now let's see managing state of a React component using useReducer hook. Okay, let me design in the same here. So initially what we are doing here is we used useState hook for managing the state. Now we are going to use useReducer. For that, as I said earlier, useReducer takes 2 parameters, that is a reducer function and then initial state. So let's design the reducer function and then define the initial state first. So let me modify this. So I'm going to have a initial state equal to count 0. Okay, so instead of useState, let's use useReducer. useReducer and then define so let me define the reducer function first, because we need to pass reducer to the useReducer hook. So right, reducer function and then initial state. We are done with the initial state. Now let's see the reducer function. So reducer takes 2 parameters again, that is a state and then action. State is nothing but the current action and the current state, and the action is the action performed by the user. Okay, here based on state type, we should based on the action type, we should perform the update. Okay, here what we do is action dot type. Based on action type, if action is, see here we are designing a a counter where we are kind of incrementing and then decrementing counter. So if it's an increment, what I'm going to do is if it's an increment, I simply increment the count. So the current state will be in the state variable. State dot count +1. In the similar way, let me add one more case. That is decrement. If it's a decrement, we should decrement the count. And I mean, if the case matches with no value, then we simply throw error. There is no matching case, then we simply throw error. Okay. So with this, we are done with the use there is a reducer function. Now the thing is, let's define the useReducer. Sorry, okay. We should actually keep these two out of our component. Let me keep here. Okay. Now here inside this, let's add useReducer hook. useReducer returns 2, right? I mean, that is a current state and dispatch function. useReducer hook returns 2 values, that is a current state and then dispatch, and then it takes 2 parameters. They are, first is a reducer function, we already defined it. This can be any name. I mean, it's not necessary to have a same useReducer. You can even keep a count reducer also. It's not that, I mean, we should keep only a reducer. It's the name can be anything. So let me add here count reducer, and then initial state is initial state argument. That is, we are actually calculating initial state based on this variable. So you simply pass this, copy, and then paste here. So now we are done with the initial, I mean, useReducer hook, defining that. Now let's dive into the designing part where we should have 2 buttons. One is to increment and other one is to decrement, right? So let me copy this and then change names. So instead of click me, one is increment, another one is decrement. These 2 functions. When we click on increment, the count should be increased. When we click on so one is for increment and another one is for decrement. So when we click on increment, what we have to do is we should pass the action to the reducer function. So based on that action, reducer function will get executed and then it will return the latest state. So here what we are doing is, to pass the action performed by user, we should use the dispatch function, which is written by the useReducer hook. Okay. Dispatch. What action we want to what action we should dispatch here is, if you look at in the reducer, what we defined is, we defined 2 actions, that is increment and then decrement. Based on this action types, the reducer function will return the value. So now what I'm doing here is, I simply pass type increment. So when we dispatch this action, the reducer function will get called and then it will execute where it comes here. So action is increment. So it executes this code and then returns the latest value, that is updating the, incrementing the value and then return the value. So in the similar way for decrement also, we should call the dispatch function and then pass the action to the dispatch action to the reducer function. Type decrement. Okay, type decrement. And then here what we're going to, let me remove this so I don't want to get confused. So here what I do is I just simply display the count. Count will be in the state. Always the current state will be in the state variable returned by the useReducer. Okay. Now let's see how exactly this works on the web page. Okay. What I have to do is here. Yeah. One sec. Let me get that down. Yeah. So we have a increment and then decrement. Let me add a break here. For some margin. Class name. Okay, yeah. So now when I click on increment, the count should get increment. When I click on decrement, the count should get decrement. Let me see. Yep, count is getting incremented when we click on increment. Oh, okay. When we click on decrement, we are getting an error. Let's see what exactly this error is. Page zoom out. Okay, what is the error? Uncaught on time errors, useReducer. What went wrong here? So we are calling decrement. Let me check the spelling whether it's correct or not. Yeah, it's decrement. I missed R here. Let me save now and then see now. Let me zoom in. Okay. Now increment. Okay. See, yep, it's working fine now. When we click on increment, the count is getting incremented. When we click on decrement, the count is getting decremented. So this is how we can manage the state of a component using useReducer. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe and share the video with your friends. If you found this very useful, please do subscribe. Thank you. Thanks again.